You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the latest episode of Star Trek Prodigy called Ghost in the Machines. Machine, singular, machine.
For no good reason.
For no good reason. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Folks, be sure to follow The Secrets of Star Trek in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, any of your favorite podcast apps, or at the StarQuest YouTube channel, where you can see us in video, and make sure you hit the bell to get notifications, because YouTube, for some reason, doesn't want you to watch the things that you subscribe to. Or that seems to be the explanation. In any case, I want to tell you about another show on the StarQuest network you're sure to enjoy, also featuring the three of us, called The Secrets of Doctor Who. You can find that wherever fine podcasts are found, or at sqpn.com/Doctor Who. So, Jimmy, can we get a recap of what happens in this episode?
Last time we learned a lot of backstories, and this time we get a holodeck malfunction episode, because no Star Trek series is complete without a holodeck malfunction episode. The kids have been running simulations on how they could make contact with the Federation without releasing the living construct's computer virus on them, but the simulations aren't going well, and they discuss the idea of abandoning their quest to go to the Federation. The kids shut down the holodeck, but strange things start happening, and they realize the holodeck is malfunctioning and they're still inside, just like in that TNG episode with Moriarty. Holodeck Janeway, or Holo Janeway, is outside trying to help them, and at one point Dal gives her his command code to shut down an imminent danger since the safeties are off and the kids could get hurt. The program they're experiencing is a mashup of different holodeck programs the kids enjoy using, and it's designed to take them to New Vertiform City. I mean, it's built around a mysterious program that Zero plays. They decide to play along, since an exit always appears once the mystery is solved, and we go through a bunch of simulated environments that are being mashed together. Eventually, Zero realizes that this isn't just a computer malfunction, it's too purposeful for that, indicating that a plan is at work. Zero also deduces who is responsible: Holo Janeway herself. And so the episode suddenly turns dark. The kids confront her, but she has no memory of triggering the program. She realizes, or they realize, that she's actually under the influence of a background program installed by the Solemnites. The ship is meant to go to the Federation, and as long as the kids were doing that, the program remained dormant. But when they gave up on going to the Federation, the program activated and caused Janeway to trap the kids in the holodeck. The program then created a threat to get Dal's command code out of him. Now that they're out of the holodeck, the kids go to the bridge and discover that they have left the neutral zone, that biological Janeway's ship is bearing down on them, and they're locked out of the controls. Completing her face turn, Holo Janeway is horrified and expresses how profoundly sorry she is. The end.
But so, is she?
I like that they went there.
Your programming just makes you say that.
Yeah.
Well, I like that they went there. Like, there's a fatal flaw with having a holo program as your key, as your friend. They didn't. I don't think they ever did this in Voyager with the Doctor. But that's like
they would break him and make him a threat, but not have him manipulated quite this. I mean, they also had people reprogram him.
Yeah.
But there wasn't like a long-standing, he's always been this way.
Mm.
Now, we have to say this. In the 21st century, we have things called firewalls that keep our computers separate. Why did Starfleet stop doing this? And we also have things called antivirus that keep things like, background programs that shouldn't be there that affect your computer.
Well,
why don't they have antivirus? Why doesn't Holo Janeway have an antivirus? That could be her immune system.
Well, they didn't know. They didn't even know. I mean, we lost a lot after World War III because when the Binars were taking over the Enterprise in season 1 of Next Gen, they didn't even know what a virus was. They had to call it a destructive data pattern or something like that.
Well, I could headcanon it that because the Solemnites, the Diviner and his people, they had the Prometheus, they had the Protostar and installed the construct in it. They would have wanted to remove firewalls and any other antivirus and that sort of stuff in order to make it work.
This is the usual complaint against Star Trek whenever they start dealing with computer stuff. There are things that we have today that the writers just kind of go, we're not going to worry about that. Now, TNG kind of give them a little bit of a pass because the word computer virus was not in the common lexicon at the time.
Yeah, it was still early days.
It's like there's things that anybody who's done any kind of work on even like a simple Windows machine knows that, yes, Windows has a firewall software. It has a antivirus software,
Well, I mean, it's the fundamental problem of that they have in the way that they run things is to have artificial beings who can be corrupted through programming. Mm-hmm. You running loose and running like as if they're regular people. Now, I know people can be corrupted, but it's not the same thing. Like for a person to be corrupted, they have to be morally undermined. It's a fundamental change. To corrupt an artificial intelligence person, right, it's just programming. You just you have to get into their program and rewrite some things, and that's
Well, that's the funny part of some of the AI experiments that have been going on, Google and Facebook, where they'd put this AI out on the internet, and like within 3 days, it becomes a racist Nazi Hitler.
right.
Which to my mind is a good thing, because if you're gonna be developing AIs, you want them stress tested.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And crowdsourcing that and saying, okay, try to mess this up is a good way, because it reveals what you need to do next time. This is how a lot of technological development typically works. Like if you're developing, I remember reading a history of, atomic power reactors and things like that, and rocket development, and you want to break them. You want to find out what their limits are. You want to break it, figure out what failed, and then fix that for the next iteration. And so it makes all the sense in the world to do that with a safely contained AI.
Exactly.
Alpha testing, beta testing, and sometimes even Charlie testing. So, it is. But I like that they went there and they showed that Holo Janeway is not, the god in the machine. It's not Deus Ex Machina. That she's flawed. That there's problems with relying on it, and that creates interesting drama. So I'm glad they did that.
And it's darker than you would expect for a fluffy kid show. So I like that. It's a good writing choice.
Well,
I want to
just real quick, one thing they could do, and they probably would do on more of a mainline Star Trek show, is that Holo Janeway was really being controlled the whole time. With this, it's going to be, this was something she didn't know about, and that this was just, like I said, like what she said at the end, that this was background and I didn't know I did it. That's going to be the truth. That's not going to be the program manipulating her. But that's the way they could take it too, so that they get the kids off of Holo Janeway and to Bio Janeway instead.
Yeah.
That would be cool, actually, if she just became a full villain and they have to run to Bio Janeway.
Yes, that would be kind of cool.
That would be cool, yeah.
Jimmy, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the holodeck episodes of Next Gen that this is most directly similar to. One of them, as I mentioned in the recap, was an episode called Ship in a Bottle, which is one where they've created Moriarty and as a holodeck character that can outthink Data. And he initially appears in one episode and they get rid of him by turning him off. But then he runs as a background program in the holodeck, and he eventually decides he wants to escape the holodeck, and so he traps Enterprise crew members in the holodeck without them realizing that's where they are. So he simulates the Enterprise inside the holodeck so he can pump them for information and hold them hostage and get the people on the outside to start working on a way to get him out of the holodeck and stuff. And eventually they counter trap him, but they simulate a shuttle in the holodeck and put him and his lady love program into the shuttle and let them explore the hollow universe before shutting off the holodeck, or running it in a parallel device. But which gives us a really meta moment at the end of that episode where Picard is saying, and who knows, we could be ourselves just characters existing in some device sitting on someone's table.
And they were.
The other, which I mentioned or alluded to with the reference to New Vertiform City, is a seventh season episode called Emergence, where the holodeck itself and the Enterprise more broadly begins to function as a developing AI that gives birth to a new computerized thing. And as part of that process, it's got a mashup of different holo programs running in the holodeck. And that's like the mashup of programs we see in this episode, which is all directed towards a goal. In that case, the ship is trying to get to a star that will release vertiform particles or something like that, and they can't go to the first star, so they go to New Vertiform City, which is a different star. But it's a mashup of different holo programs episode, and that's what we had here.
Speaking of Moriarty, I think I remember hearing that Moriarty returns for Picard season 3.
Yeah,
correct.
He's in the most recent trailer for Picard season 3. They show him kind of at the end.
That's going to be interesting to see how they do that.
Well,
we've got slap the thing on your wrist or on your shoulder, Doctor, and you can walk around now. So
I know.
And I think all the ships now that they've in canon said have holo emitters throughout the entire ship.
Right, which is what the Protostar has. I'm curious if maybe they have been able to replicate the Doctor's mobile emitter. If they did, I would expect this Janeway to have it, and she doesn't. So maybe not. So in the simulation, when they start, we have the usual. It's a simulation, but we're supposed to not realize it until after it's been going, and they're simulating the encounter with the Dauntless. And I like the fact that they came up with the idea of using the phasers to do Morse code.
Yes, that was a really good idea. Yeah. Because so what they are trying to do in the simulation is they're having an encounter with the Dauntless, and they're using their phaser to send Morse code signals, just pulses of light. And because they're doing it in Morse code, the communications medium is too simple to carry the virus. Right. And you're just turning on and off this laser, and that's something that had occurred to me. I didn't think of doing it with with the phasers, but one of the things I'd been thinking about is they could just use signal lights,
right?
Because signal lights are backup. We use them on ships today in case of communications failure. We have signal lights we can communicate with, and they could do signal lights, which in space you'd use a laser for.
You could blink the entire ship.
Yeah. Well, I was just even think you wouldn't even have to do that. You could just blink the light that that shines on the registry number on the front.
Right.
All the
exactly.
ships have the one light there. They could just blink that.
Yes. You could write a note on a piece of paper and shoot it out of a tube and bonk it off the nose of the Dauntless.
As good as
note
the
in a bottle.
as good as the sensors are supposed to be, they could hold a piece of paper up to the window of the front window of the Protostar.
Yes, there are some holes in the plot holes in this entire thing, which so, and I wonder.
Well, this turn at the end of this episode may be their way of preempting those.
Well, and that's the thing I was going to say is I wonder how much of every one of these simulations they ran failed. Well, I wonder how much of that is due to Holo Janeway sabotaging them so that they would have to keep doing this thing and then when they do the unexpected, which is to say, well, we're not going to bother, we're disappointed, and having to pull back on that or something.
Well, and one thing we could kind of give credit to is these are kids. They're not going to have, Starfleet training. They're not going to have all this knowledge. They're not going to, the fact they even came up with Morse code. How many kids today, even with the wealth of the internet, would be able to come up, hey, we could use this thing called Morse code.
Unless they're scouts.
But these are all, you also do semaphore.
And back in my day, we had ham radio, and I got my ham radio license, and I had to learn Morse code and be able to key it at 11 words a minute.
I can attest that scouts still learn Morse code, though. We actually have to learn. But these are all alien kids.
I'm also not joking. I did get my ham license.
That's awesome. Nice. So they're all disappointed. And then we have like the usual when there's this transporter sort of thing, like you said, Jimmy. She suggests rest. So they've decided to abandon the effort, and so she suggests they go rest. They've been working too hard. Jankum, of course, comes up with the idea of having an ice cream party to lift their spirits because ice cream. And then weird stuff starts happening, which causes them to realize they've never left the holodeck. Now, was that? I'm trying to refer to it. Tainted Janeway.
Yes.
Luring them back into the story.
Yes.
They never left the holograms in
the holodeck.
Or the holodeck. Yeah.
Right. That's what I was saying. But they never left. But
her directions, as we later saw, to the holodeck were create a program that will keep them busy.
Okay.
And so that's why the weird stuff starts happening. It's keeping them busy.
Right. Now, at first, Janeway's explanation was subspace blah 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 interfering, which I was like kind of a little disappointed because that's sort of
I thought, here we go again.
Yeah, typical Trek, just make some stuff up. But that actually was, a little made up because it wasn't really what was going on. So I like that in retrospect.
Yeah, that's one of the things this episode really does a turn on you, because initially it appears to be here's a fun adventure episode where the holodeck breaks again.
Right.
And you're expecting the lazy, sloppy writing at the beginning. And then by the end of it, it's like, oh, wow, this is serious.
Yes. Yeah.
And I like that very much. I like that subversion of expectations of, okay, here's a boring holodeck malfunction episode. And then it suddenly turns out to be important.
Right. I did like that. They do take a moment where Rock explains how the holodeck works, which is what you'd expect from a show aimed at introducing kids to Star Trek. And my own so I watched this episode with my kids. I was telling you guys earlier, and this was helpful. So I didn't have to pause and explain what a holodeck is and what's going on. It explained it for them. So that was really nice that we had that little bit of explanation in there
and
how
they
it
took
works.
the explanation right from the technical manual, the TNG technical manual.
Oh, right. Nice. That's awesome.
There's a couple of things in this episode that actually have come from the old books.
Yeah, including the star map.
Yep. Yeah. Right. Yeah. They like with the lower decks writing staff, the Prodigy staff really seems to be, they're Star Trek fans who wish to mine the canon for all the good stuff. And again, if you're trying to introduce a new generation to Star Trek, which is what Prodigy's goal is, mining the canon and bringing all that cool stuff out is, I think, a great idea.
So if we're going to say weird stuff happened, we probably should mention at least one weird thing that happened. And there were several, but at the beginning, one of the weird things is they go out into the hall and there's this incredibly cute, clearly designed sentient creature that Rock immediately recognizes as something called a glitter smooch. Which is, the girliest thing ever. And it looks kind of like a really girly Pokemon character.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's what it is. She plays we learn that she plays a program called Delta Heart Veterinary Hospital, where they where she, I guess, is a doctor or nurse that cares for these incredibly girly Pokemon characters. One of them is known as Glitter Smooch.
Yes.
And later we meet another one, which is it's kind of like it's called a Sparkle Sea Hugger. and it's like a giant kraken that will hug your ship to death. But it's another. They're kind of basketball shaped with accoutrements stuck on them.
Yeah.
But going out into the hall, I know I would be surprised if I went out in the hall and saw one of these things.
I think it was Jankum who saw it and said, "Why is this thing making kissy faces at me?"
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Delta Heart Magical Veterinarian Program. I mean, it's like a lot of these like kids casual games they have on the phones. You know, just like
really
very
like a
fluffy. Yeah.
Pokemon doctor type thing.
Yeah. So, and then when they go in to the holodeck inside the holo program, it's running a Zero's mystery detective. It's a Sherlock Holmes program, essentially.
Well, it's sort of a kids mystery solving society thing, and it's like it's called the Cellar Door Society, and it's like those games that actually adults play, where it's like you go to a dinner party and someone has subscribed to a service and they have a box full of clues that you're supposed to go through one at a time, and you're assigned roles and you do, and it's like that, only it very much reminded me of those real world games, which I've never actually played, but I gather they're popular. Yes. And Zero is all into it. And in fact, he's so into it, he is annoyingly into it. And the other characters keep dumping on the mystery and how lame it is, which is their way of hanging a lantern on how lame this mystery is. But Zero is this was I mean for me it was a flaw in the writing. It might not be for someone else, especially a kid watching this, but Zero is just way too enthusiastic about this mystery.
Well, yeah, they get the envelopes of the clues come flying in through the mail slot in the door, and they land on the floor at their feet, and that's when Zero says, "The mystery is a feat." Get it, Sherlock Holmes.
Get the pun in.
Get the pun. And it turns out that they have to layer all of the sheets of paper together. And so if this was written for an adult, like their reactions would seem silly. Like, of course, it's not gibberish. It's a clue. You know, figure out how they work together. But for kids, you have to really spell it out. And so then they have to spend some time figuring out that they have to stack them up. And as you look through it, it's like a puzzle pieces, and it creates a skeleton key. It's the case of the lost skeleton key.
I love how Jenkum was about ready to torch his.
Right.
We then go into Jankum's program, which is a street fighting program where he gets to beat up on regular size Tellarites.
Tellarite biker gangs.
Not just regular size. It was Dr. Gnome, the Tellarite doctor.
Oh, right. That's what it is.
He was so offended by how he was being attacked. You know, how Dr. Gnome just kind of dismisses him. Oh, you're just a runt, and walks away.
The 80s action movie soundtrack to it. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but it was very much like either Karateka, which was the old video game. Or what was the arcade one? Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter. Yeah. So it was basically a takeoff on that.
And this is where they realize the safeties are off, and they give Janeway Dal's command code to eliminate a physical threat to them.
Right, because the safeties are always off. That's how we create drama in the holodeck. So, and then they have to run off, and one of the bikers has the tattoo of the skeleton key on his chest, and so they have to chase him down.
And it says the Key Club, and so they then go to a nightclub that is called the Key Club.
But everything turns black and white, like a film noir, right?
And it's essentially like a 1930s nightclub during Prohibition. It's a speakeasy, but with musical entertainment. And it turns out that Murph is like a little Fred Astaire. A little Frank Sinatra, only maybe he's Murph sings is the point.
Yes.
Murph sings like a nightclub singer. He's very much like Frank Sinatra. He's got a little Frank Sinatra hat, and Vic Fontaine. But they do, and the kids are amazed that Murph can sing.
Yes,
because normally he just makes cute bloopy noises. but they do leave open the possibility maybe he's just really good at lip syncing. So they don't confirm that Murph can really sing.
I think it's still leading to there's more to Murph than meets the eye. So because Murph's not just like cute thing that bloops around.
By the way, the song that he's saying is something they licensed online. You can go online to a site called Song Trader. And
really? Oh, wow.
Smile and forget it.
Smile. That's awesome. So Gwen, by the way, she's kind of she's trying to deal with it all and goes to the bar where it turns out the bartender looks like her father, the diviner.
Mm-hmm.
She orders a Jumja tea, by the way, which we know Jumja from Deep Space Nine.
Right.
Yeah.
And she at first is thinking, oh, my father, we did a holodeck of my father, which we saw them do a few episodes ago. So his image has gotten mashed in here too.
Right.
And he's being nice to her.
Yes.
I mean, he's not playing her father. He's just playing a bartender. And it is John Noble doing the voice. But she's telling him about, you look like my dad and he's mean to me. And it's like, oh, well, sounds like you need to chart your own course.
Right. This is when they start to ask, why is the holodeck merging these particular programs? Like, why is it? And this is when we start to unravel what's really going on.
And they give us a little statistical argument. It goes by very briefly, but they point out, in fact, I think it's Rock that points out, there are thousands of programs in its database. Why do we keep getting programs that are relevant to us?
Yes, exactly. There must be an intelligence behind it. And so the escape from this particular holo program turns out to be through the key. There was a missing piano key.
It's not missing so much as just broken.
Yeah, it's like a dead key.
They call it a missing key.
And right, because it's the lost key, skeleton key. So they end up jumping through the piano into the next holo program, which is a pirate ship. And this is Dal's program where he has a crew who actually respects him, as he says.
And this is where they encounter the Sparkle Sea Hugger that hugs the ship to death.
Oh, I don't want to miss the fact that before they jumped in, Gwen says, "Let's pop this blow stand," and Del says, "I don't think that's how it goes." that was a nice little line. So yes, and they have the Sea Hugger monster, and they get another clue that they're supposed to follow. But this is where Zero cuts them off, and this is the big turn in this episode. This is the moment when everything turns, because Zero realizes there is no skeleton key. There is no key, and there's only 3 lights, and so they decide
four lights.
No, I thought there was. Never mind.
4.
So
aren't there really 5 lights?
I think there might be.
There
5.
are 4 lights.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the Monty Python Holy Grail. 3 seconds, no forcer. So it's a ruse. I'm sorry, way off on a tangent. It's a ruse to keep them preoccupied so they don't solve why they're in there in the first place, right? This is what we talked about before. And so Zero surmises that Holo Janeway has a subroutine from the construct, the virus, that's keeping them on their path to go to Federation space, which is kind of brilliant when you think about it, that you would want something in there to make whoever's running the ship, whatever you have to do, get this ship into contact with a Starfleet ship. It's brilliantly evil, I have to say. So, and then because earlier, like you said, Dal had to give Holo Janeway his command code in order to put the safeties back on, she then had access. And we have this whole sequence where they replay her logs of her doing all these things that she doesn't realize she did. And that's where we have them confronted by the Dauntless, which I'm still kind of thinking, like, from end of last episode, how are they possibly going to progress from here with Essentia, the Vindicator and the Diviner and the other Dreadnought having knocked out Admiral Janeway? How is this? Maybe Essentia is going to take Janeway's form or something?
That or just assume command as Essentia. She's not. I assume she. If I were her. So here we move into the speculation part of the show.
Yep.
Right.
If I was Essentia, I would turn back on my hollow thing that at least makes me look like a Trill.
Yeah.
And say the captain has been incapacitated. Maybe she goes to sickbay or something. But anyway, she's incapacitated. I have to take charge.
Well,
or she could impersonate Janeway potentially.
Yeah.
But
since he's an ensign, like she's like the lowest rank, so I would assume that she wouldn't be able to take command. But the second one, I think, is where she assumes the form of Janeway. Probably more likely, from my point of view.
She could potentially do that.
Yeah.
Although that thing she uses is not a hollow emitter. It's a gene thing.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the same gene activator that Dal had.
Yeah.
So she may not have the genes to impersonate Janeway. And actually, the Dauntless may be in disarray at this point. They may still be sorting out the situation with Janeway and the Diviner. So they may not actually be a threat at the moment. The kids may have just perceived them as a threat.
Right.
Which is one way they could get out of it. Once they realize the ship is not doing anything, they could just zoom off. Or, they've got their protostar drive back now.
Yep.
So they could flee. They also could try Morse code.
Mm-hmm.
That might have been part of why they showed us that, was to set us up for the kids eventually using it.
Yeah.
There's basically 2 stories left. There's 1 episode and then a 2-part finale. So we're coming to a head. So whatever's going to happen is going to happen, I think, in the next 3 episodes that are aired. So I think that's plausible that the Dauntless is in disarray at this moment. And whatever is going to happen is not going to be the usual thing that we expect. So I think they've shown a track record of going beyond the standard expectation. So I think that's good.
Yeah, it was kind of surprising that they didn't advance the Diviner Janeway plot at all in this episode. I mean, it wasn't even mentioned. Because in previous episodes they'd even do just like a little short flash, flash over to the Dauntless for 2 or 3 minutes. They didn't even do that here. There's
probably, sorry.
So we don't know what's going on there.
Probably because whatever's going on there is precipitous. It's going to bring about the final resolution of the whole problem. So they had to hold that off so that they, for the last 2 stories. So interesting. Mind Walk is the next episode. That's interesting.
Okay, that suggests some kind of telepathic contact.
Yep. And then
so Zero could be doing that since he's a telepath. That could be what they try to do. Zero could be, as a telepath, he's not carrying the virus. He could try to make mental contact with the people over on the Dauntless.
That could be interesting. And then the other one the final one is called Supernova, which leads me to believe that maybe Protostar is going to be destroyed in order to save the Federation.
Well, maybe they'll use it to go to the future and get Captain Chakotay and his crew.
That's possible too.
Yep. Because it was a spatial or temporal anomaly and wormhole basically that caused the Protostar to go forward in time in the first place.
Okay. All right. So we've looked at the past, we've looked at the present, we looked at the future. We should wrap things up. Father Cory, any last thoughts?
No, I enjoyed this one. I mean, for Stuck in the Holodeck one, it really was well done. And obviously, they did look to Ship in a Bottle as kind of the inspiration. But then, like Jimmy said, they gave it that little twist where all of a sudden it turns dark. So I really kind of enjoyed this one.
Yep. Jimmy, final thoughts?
Nope.
All right, then let's take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Angelica G, Kirsten R, Bob R, Blake N, and Ian W. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek in all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. We'd love to hear what you thought of Ghost in the Machine. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, send an email to trek@sqpn.com, or visit our StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. And like I said before, you can watch The Secrets of Star Trek in full color video on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next episode of Prodigy called Mind Walk. Until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing The Secrets of Star Trek. Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thank you,
And once again, I'm Don Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, the mystery is a feat.